Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Troy Public Library. My name is not Cathy Russ. My name is actually Philip Quick. I'm the Assistant Director here at the library, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our panel on what employers really want. Soon you will be hearing from this panel of local business experts to talk about what skills and what attributes they look for in employees in that all-important job interview and job application process. So we hope it's a helpful program to you. This program is part of a 2-week program that we do here at the library called Computer Skills for the Job Seeker. The idea of the program is that in order to even begin looking for work today, you need an entirely new skill set than you did 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. You need computer technical competencies, computer skills, and a whole range of skills that we didn't need 10 years ago when we were looking for work. So those of you who might be changing careers, who might have been out of the workforce for a while, or who might be looking for jobs in other ways, the process of looking for work is different than it was. It's largely technology, and that's the skills that we teach in our 2-week program. If you are interested, you can see me after the panel today. You can pick up a flyer in the lobby of the library, or you can go to our website, troylibrary.info/jobseekers, and find out more information. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a little commercial for the Friends of the Troy Public Library. For those of you who don't know, the Friends of the Library is an all-volunteer, not-for-profit group that runs the bookstore outside of the main meeting room here in the library, and runs the gift shop outside of the main meeting room, and the bookstore in the basement of the library. The Friends work tirelessly on behalf of the library and support it. All of the money that they make comes back to the library in terms of services and equipment and programs like this and like our Job Seekers program. So if you are looking for books or gifts, or if you are interested in volunteering for the Friends, you can stop and see one of the Friends after the panel today. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce Cathy Russ, the Director of the library, who will chair this panel.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you, all of you, for coming. We're so pleased to be able to offer this segment to you today. As Philip mentioned, it is a new segment in our Job Seekers program, and I think it is just so important to be as prepared as you possibly can be for that interview, because as we all know, jobs are so competitive these days. So it's really great that we are able to offer this. We're able to offer this due to the generosity of our panelists. They are taking their time to come here to talk to us today, to share their expertise and their experience with you. And I think we should give them a round of applause before we start. Our format today is basically very simple. What we're going to start out with is I've asked each panelist to talk to you a little bit about who they are, what they do, and how they got where they are today. Once all of our panelists have given their introduction, we're going to come back around and I'm going to ask them to talk to you about behaviors that they like to see during interviews and behaviors they do not like to see during interviews. Following that, we should have some time for questions, so I would open up to the floor to questions at that time. So I hope that that's clear, and so please hold your questions until the end. With that, I would like to get started, and our first panelist is Lisa Paulo, who is in charge of talent acquisition at Altair. So take it away, Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Paulo, and I'm the talent acquisition manager at Altair Engineering. We're just down the street. We are a software engineering company. My background is compiled of a degree from Oakland University in business management. From there, I went into staffing immediately. So I've been hiring folks for a long time, both for the OEMs, local, as well as for the current company that I work for. We hire a diverse population of talent, both within the United States and outside. So we do hiring for folks here as well as a lot of immigration work.
Am I next? I
I'm sorry. Yes, Jessica Hammond is our next panelist.
Hi, my name's Jessica Hammond, and I work at United Shore Financial Services. We're a mortgage company. I head up the talent group there, so focused on both bringing in external talent, but making sure we have all the people in the right seats internally. My background is in industrial organizational psychology, which is business psychology. I've been in HR and financial services for about, 10 years now. Always focused on being that HR type business partner. Today, in terms of what we do, we've grown from 200 employees to 1,300 over the course of 2 years, so we have a lot of opportunities and still hiring, so it's an exciting place to be. And after I spent most of my time in Chicago and New York, so coming back to Michigan, it's been really great and a good opportunity.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Brian Kishnick, who is the city manager for the city of Troy.
Thank you. And just 2 points before I talk about myself. I want to say thank you, Cathy and Philip, for putting this presentation together. It really shows how the Troy Library is more of a resource for the entire community and not just books and paper and internet and electronic books. So good for you for actually trying to raise the level and be a resource for the community to move people forward. So that's number one. And number two, when you think of Altair and United Shore Mortgage Services, 2 very significant businesses in the city of Troy who have done great things, and I've had the advantage of touring both now since I've been here 8 months. So I am just that. I work for one of the best cities in the U.S., the city of Troy, Michigan. And if you've been here for any amount of time, I think you would know all the gems that we have here in the city of Troy. And I've been here 8 months. So I've been getting around to the different businesses and have hired several people already because the city of Troy is a large organization. But I've worked in places like Little Rock, Arkansas, Largo, Florida, middle of Michigan, Tittabawassee Township, up by Saginaw and Midland, as well as a few other places, East Lansing and Lansing. On my way to becoming a city manager, and I've been a city manager, a township manager, and worked for the county, on my way to the city of Troy. But Troy is really a destination and is really a great place to bring your family, which is what I've done. And I look forward to being part of this community and taking part in many of these conversations.
Thank you, Brian. And I want to thank Brian for the commercial about the library. Please do consider the library as your resource. We can help you with your job search. We can help you with whatever you need. It is not just about books. So I'm sorry for the segue, but I had to get that in before, before we really got rolling. So our next panelist is Jennifer Robert, who's the Vice President of Information Technology for Genesis Credit Union.
Hi, yeah. I've been with Genesis Credit Union for about 15 years. I started as an MSR at our Pontiac location when I was finishing up my degree from the University of Michigan, where I studied accounting. So from there, I kind of, through networking and getting involved through different projects throughout the credit union, made my way through our branch operations. And about 4 years ago, they asked me if I would like to take on the challenge of moving into our information technology services. So now I manage all of our IT operations, our network and telecom services, and do a lot of project management to move the credit union forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I hope you can see we have some experts available to you today. So as we move through our panel discussion, please, maybe jot down some questions that you might have for them that they can take at the end of our panel discussion. We're very fortunate to have so much expertise in this room to help us today. So I'm going to go back to Lisa. And Lisa, if you can start, tell us what employers really want. What do you like to see during interviews, and what do you really not want to see?
Well, this is perfect timing because I had an 8:30 interview this morning before I came here. And fortunately, it was a good interview, so I'll tell you how it flowed. Just to give you a little background, we probably, between phone interviews that we do conduct, which I may initiate, which is a more casual type of an interview on the phone, and those are equally as important as an in-person interview. I'm collecting information about what's motivating you, verifying information on your resume prior to sending it over to the actual hiring manager, who actually is my customer. So my job is to make that customer as happy as I can and delivering them a candidate that best meets their needs. So a lot of what we do before an interview takes place is to essentially determine, who maybe some of the top 2 or 3 candidates are that I can present over to that manager. That manager, because we are a technical company, may prefer to do a phone screen as well, partly because we have offices throughout the United States and actually globally, so there may be a phone screen. Once you come in person, though, what I like to see and what I consider to be a good interview is to arrive about 10 minutes early. You don't need to arrive much sooner than that, but showing that you are there and settling in, getting comfortable, taking a breath, it's going to be good for both of us that you're prepared mentally. The second thing is I do want you to dress neatly. We are actually a very casual company. I have dressed up today. I usually wear jeans to work every day, so we're fortunate to have a very laid-back company culture. However, when you come to an interview, I want to see that if I were to take you to a customer, we had an important meeting, that you could dress appropriately. So that's what I would expect to see. One of the key things in an interview is to listen to the question before you answer it. I have been often, I know you can get excited, but cut off before I finish my question, and it might take us in the wrong direction. So if you listen first to what I'm asking you and then answer, there's a reason why I'm asking you this question. I probably have other questions that I want to go down a path with you, and so if you listen to what I'm asking and then answer the question to the best of your ability. Again, in pleasing my customers, my job is to make a connection. So that's also your job. Help me to make a connection from what your previous work experience was to the requirements of the position. I've already sent you the job description, or you've seen it online, you've seen it somewhere, so you know what I'm looking for, and only you know what you've done and how there's relativity to the position that you're talking to me about. So bring examples. I see, Lisa, that you're looking for someone with this background. I've done similar work. And at Altair, we really look for aptitude and attitude across the board, regardless if it's a technical position, a position in marketing, finance, accounting. So if you have the attitude and the aptitude, I'm going to be drawn to you. So relate for me the experiences that you've had previously to what the role is now. Help me make that connection. Help me understand so I can help the hiring manager understand why you would be a good fit for the opportunity. So that's kind of your job in the interview as well. The other thing that I like to see in an interview is some follow-up. Even if you've decided, this is not the role for me, I could get another position tomorrow that might be the role for you. Follow-up isn't that just because I want to be thanked for my time, but it shows that you understand service, you understand business acumen, you understand that it's important to show follow-up, because I have to show follow-up. It doesn't matter what position you're in, you have to show follow-up. Close the loop. And in sending a note, even if you're not interested in the role, even if it's not a fit for you, even if you love the job and you desperately want the job, shows to me that you understand what the next step is. I would say, in terms of what I don't like to see in an interview, is someone who is not prepared with questions. Because it's got to be a fit for both of us. You have to want us as much as we want you. And if it's all one-sided, if I'm doing all the question asking and you're doing all the answering, I feel like you're not really interested. You really haven't spent the night before and thought about, why would I want to work at Altair and what would be interesting for me. So come engaged, come with questions. They can be questions about the technical aspects of the job. They can be questions about the culture of the company. They can be questions about, what we do in the community and volunteer services, anything, just to show me that you're interested and that it's not just a one-sided conversation.
Thank you. Excuse me. Now we'll turn it over to Jessica.
That's great. So I would agree with all of that. I think those are all great points. One thing that my team does is we really look at the organizational culture fit. So we want to make sure you value what we value. We're always more likely to hire somebody into a role that maybe doesn't have the experience or the technical skills, but has the alignment with what we think is important. So we have certain values, we call them pillars. One of them is continuous improvement. So we're looking for people who are always trying to make themselves better, whether it's professionally, personally. So in the interview, I'll ask questions around that area and say, so tell me about a time, when you had to look in the mirror and say, I need to get better at this, or I got some feedback that I need to use, and I need to kind of incorporate that into what I'm doing today to become better tomorrow. And we take that stuff pretty seriously. We have pretty robust training, so we are fortunate from that perspective. So I can hire somebody who maybe doesn't have all the technical skills needed, and that I can just match up from a culture perspective. A lot of, I think as our industry moves forward from a talent acquisition perspective and talent management perspective, this piece of the puzzle is going to be more and more important. I'm just seeing a lot of companies doing it where if a candidate comes in and they're not in alignment with what the company values, they're probably not going to be a fit longer term from a leader perspective or just an individual contributor perspective. So when you go online to look at the company, see if you can find those values or what the mission or vision statement is. If you don't believe in it, I would recommend you don't apply to the company, because I really believe that longer term it's probably not going to be the right step for you. So if you can focus more on that piece in really doing the research up front on the company and how long they've been in business and what has the owner done outside of the organization, what do they value, I think you'll get closer to that place where you're going to have a really successful career. So that's something we really focus on. And then the other thing I'm always looking for are people who are passionate about what they do. So we all work hard in whatever we do, and we're working a lot of hours, so you really have to have that passion to get through some of the adversity you're going to come up against in the organization. So somebody who's read the job description thoroughly, again, ask questions about what am I going to be doing every day? How am I going to be held accountable? How will I get feedback? Those sorts of questions that show you're just really passionate about what you do and what you're going to be doing for the organization. We also, another thing is, I know we're searching for .NET developers, which you and I were talking about earlier. It's very difficult because the STEM population is not as large as the demand is. But again, we focus more on the soft skills of the role. So I'm looking for people who have high integrity. I'm looking for people who have high aptitude. You mentioned those sorts of things. So think about when you get on the phone with the recruiter, talent acquisition manager, whomever, ask what are the things that I need to have outside of the technical skills I see in the job description and the job duties, because that will help you to better understand, in the in-person interview, what kind of questions they're going to be asking. So, for example, they might say client service is really important for this role because we need somebody to have follow-up, etc. So then you can understand, okay, well, I need to really tell them I worked at this restaurant when I was in, whatever graduate school, or I worked at a hotel before. They need to understand that I did these things, and I understand client service. So kind of tying it back that way. In terms of the things I don't like to see, it's pretty standard. I like people to come in that are, again, passionate about the opportunity, passionate about the organization, have a nice energy and presence to them, make eye contact, have a suit on or dress nicely so you look like you're serious. I always say dress for the job you want, right? I'm pretty traditional like that. Try to sit still, not move around. It's hard because when you get in these swivel chairs, you can start to really move around. It's so tempting because I do it. But just be mindful of your body language and your engagement with the interviewer or interviewees, for that matter. And as you mentioned, always ask questions. I want to know you're excited about us. So questions show that engagement. So
Great, thank you. And we'll turn it over to Brian.
Good, thank you, Kathy. And I guess that we could conclude right there with those two presentations because they do this a lot. And if you listen to what they said, it's really point on, right? Besides, but I take a little different approach in terms of when I just interviewed with the city of Troy, which is a pretty interesting process to say the least. And I'll talk a little bit about it so that you get a flavor for the different situations. No matter what level you're at or what job you're approaching or applying for or interested in, you could be involved in such a process. But I take a little more holistic approach. I think the art of interviewing, the art of selling yourself, the art of making the connection between you and the company that you want to work for and the position that's available starts whenever you're ready to start that process. And it means this. You can do all the preparation in the world, and I'll talk about it in a second, in terms of researching the company, researching the different levels, researching the culture, researching the president, researching the client. That's all a must. That's a given. That's like the ABCs. You need to take a step back before you do that, though, and you need to work on your own social and personal skills. You need to be able to function in a social setting, whether it's professional, social, or IT, or you need to know the setting that you're going into, and you need to be able to function in a very professional way, in a very realistic way, starting with even the basics of eye contact, firm handshake, smile, honesty, integrity. Practice, practice, practice. Be able to speak fluently. I asked my son last night, he said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm taking a few notes about what are some things that I like about people who interview and what are some things I don't like about interview." So he grabbed my pen and he's doing this with my pen. If you can't hear it, he's doing that. I said, "Well, obviously you just showed me one of my pet peeves with people who interview." She talked about the fidgeting because of the thing. But we're all going to bring in probably a folder like this. I always bring in my note cards because while I'm young, really young, I still am a little old school with my note cards. I try to keep it brief, but yet I have the highlights on it. And I don't keep a pen in my hand because I know I'm going to make those very annoying gestures. So it starts with recognizing and doing a self-evaluation of your own social skills. Now, some people are naturally very good with social skills and presentation and public speaking and one-on-one and one-on-four. But it doesn't matter. You practice, self-evaluate, practice, get with a friend, get with someone you don't know, call Cathy at the library, see if you can practice with her, anybody. So you have that momentum going in, because the more familiar you are with the process and with your social skills, the better you're going to come across. I haven't hired anyone in the last 17 years because of their technical skills. We quit doing that in Largo, Florida in 1993. You have to have the foundation, right, for the job you're applying for. Obviously, a little more important in the IT world and the maybe mortgages than my world, but we hire the person. We hire the person that we think is committed. We hire the person that we think is the best fit. We hire the person that we think is going to be part of the team and that we can trust and that can trust us to elevate everyone and elevate the organization. That's the person we're most interested in. And again, they talked about a lot of the things, the dress for success. There's no excuse to not dress appropriately. I go to the place that I'm going to interview for. I came to Troy several times. I don't know that you need to do that, but you should come to the place you're going to interview at least once, the day before, the week before, while you're doing your research, because it gives you that comfortability. Little did I know that I was going to have to be in front of all the department heads in the morning and the 4 other finalists for the position of city manager in Troy, as well as at night with the city council and the public, and have to stand up and talk about myself for 5 minutes. That's not the most comfortable situation to be in. But you need to have the practice and have the confidence in yourself through practice, through interaction, through life experiences, to be able to do that and do that in a very professional way. So practice builds confidence. Familiarity builds confidence. Experience builds confidence. And that's what puts you to the next level to impress and present and get that job. So I'll just end with this, because she talked about coming 10 minutes early. We always have a saying, and I still have the saying to this day: if you're not 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. So just remember that. There is this culture that's been created, and I don't know where it came from, but this idea of being late is okay, and meetings not starting on time, and things like that. And I've had people come for interviews who were right on time or a little bit late and apologize. You need to be there 10 minutes early, and if you need to, whatever you need to do, come 10 minutes early or you're late. And that's a bad way to start an interview. And it's a softball. It's a no-brainer. So starting with working on your skills now, going through the preparation, and then hitting the highlights of, and I'll talk about it through question and answer, I'm sure, of making sure there's 3 to 5 things that you want to hit on qualities that you have, experiences that you've had, successes you've had, failures you've had, that you want to make sure no matter what question they ask you, you can ask me any question. I guarantee you I can get that stuff in there and categorize it perfectly so that I make my points that I want you to know about me.
Thank you, Brian. And we'll turn it over to Jennifer.
A lot of really good points. And I guess what I would add is with Genesis and me being in the IT role, our HR department turns the IT hiring over to me because I'm typically looking for a very specialized individual. And I think Lisa mentioned the importance of the phone interview. I firmly believe, be prepared for that phone interview. In my instance, my HR department will conduct that pre-interview on the phone, and their impression of you, their feel for you, and how you're coming across through the phone is important to me because they'll relay that to me as they're setting up the interview and kind of give me some indicators, this person I think might be a really good fit. This is the feel I got from them over the phone. So that phone interview is very important, even though it's just some very basic questions. How you come across can play a role in the interview that I get, because I'm kind of basing kind of my questions and so on for you a little bit in that direction. And being confident, that's something that, I can't stress enough. Being confident in that interview is very important because with information technology, I'm looking for, you're confident in your abilities, but you're also confident enough within that you're willing to say, hey, this might be new territory for me. I'm willing to learn this. And everybody here has mentioned a passion, and that's something that's very important. Displaying your passion for technology, your willingness. Technology is always changing. So for us, someone who is so passionate about it that they're not willing to let their skills become stale. They're always seeking improvement. They're always looking to learn and push themselves to the next level. So those are things, that I look for in addition to what everyone else has mentioned with regards to, being early, as, your body language, the eye contact, the firm handshake, make sure your cell phone is turned off when you enter the interview, and, don't fidget, and answer the questions, elaborate so I have the information about you, but be concise in your answer at the same time. I know sometimes it is a tricky balance. You're trying to get across your message, answering the question. You're trying to relay to me how, you best fit into this role. But at the same time, try to keep your answers as brief as possible and not go on for 45 minutes answering the one question. So I think all of those are really, really important. And the follow-up is important as well, showing me that you're interested in the position, and that your values align with our values. I think everybody up here has talked about doing your research. I can't tell you that enough. Because you're really interviewing me as much as I'm interviewing you. If I'm not going to be a fit for you, I would rather you tell me that right up front. That way neither one of us wastes our time going forward, because we're looking for people who are very driven and are of the same mindset that we are and are just as passionate about our jobs and want to move forward. So if you don't believe in what we're doing, then I'm really not the fit for you. So you should be interviewing me as much as I'm interviewing you.
All right. Well, a lot of information, but I think you've heard some common themes here. Be prepared. and visit the place where you're considering interviewing or applying, or do your research. If you for some reason can't visit, make sure you check out that company, see what the company values, see what the organization is all about, and determine if you are a good fit for that organization before you make that commitment. Be passionate about what you like to do and what you want to do. And with the passion comes interest. And that is so important as an employer because we want people who want to work for us. Good body language, no fidgeting, confidence. And confidence can be achieved through a lot of practice. When I've thought about interviewing and when I've talked to my students, I've likened it to muscle memory when you play a sport. Because how do you get better at a sport? How do you get better at baseball? You play baseball. How do you get better at golf? You play golf. How do you get better at interviewing? You practice interviewing. And even just talking, doing that question response with someone who is able to communicate with you, okay, that was a good answer, but maybe you need to do this, or maybe you need to bring up this, or stop fidgeting. Someone who will be honest with you. That's really important. So I want to thank the panelists, and now I'd like to open it up for questions from the floor. The way that this will work is if you want to raise your hand, I will ask you to state your question. I will then repeat the question, and then we'll turn it over to the panel to answer the question. So who wants to go first? Yes, sir.
Following up with a note, I often write a handwritten note, like on a nice note card. Is that something you would appreciate seeing rather than just?
So the question is, do the panelists think it is more appropriate to send a handwritten note or to send an email? So who wants to go first?
Me.
Lisa. We'll go down the line.
It was her point. So.
Yeah. So I do love a note card because it is old-fashioned, and I like to put it on my desk and know that my time was appreciated. However, typically the positions we're staffing for, due to the level of competition, again, I'm in a software engineering company, is pretty fierce. And so if that candidate is interested, if they're closing the loop with me and showing to me that they are interested in, I want the job, I want you to want the company as much as the company wants you. That's what I want in human resources. It enforces stability. We have a very low turnover rate, very high retention in the company. This person is a fit. Yay. I really want to see that now. Unfortunately, the mail doesn't come now, but email does. So I would love to see an email from you saying thank you and I'm interested within 24 hours. If you want to follow up with a note card, that's wonderful. I will put it on my desk and remember you that way as well. But really, the sooner the better. And again, I want to stress that even if you think I didn't get the job or it's not a fit for me, it's still courteous to send that email and say, thanks for your time. Hope to hear from you. Because again, I may have the right fit for you open up tomorrow. And I'm going to remember that we talk to a lot of people, we interview a lot of people, and the really good ones, and unfortunately sometimes the really bad ones stick out in our minds. But when it comes to a hiring manager asking for someone, I'm going to remember the really good ones, and the really good ones do include that follow-up email.
Does anyone have anything they want to add to that?
I don't think so.
You have to be better than good, right? So the email is immediate for her, but you have to follow it up with a handwritten because that sets you up. You have to find ways to set yourself apart from everyone else. I bet, I'm just guessing, but 90% of the people send a follow-up email, right? Maybe that's high, but a lot of people, no.
That's high, unfortunately.
But if they're going to follow up, it's going to be an email. So set yourself apart. Find a different way. You have to do the email because you have to reach, but find another way. I send handwritten notes and cards, not for jobs. I don't apply that much, but for different types of situations.
If I can add to that, I do a lot of interviewing myself, and when candidates send a handwritten note, it makes an impression on me. And often to me, our HR has a system where it's based on numbers. But if I have to make a decision between two candidates, the person who sends the handwritten note is going to have the edge because it's that personal touch. Next question. Yes, Cindy.
When you're looking for someone, are you using headhunters, or can people just send you their resume and you'll click them up when you need that kind of worker?
The question is, do our panelists use headhunters, or do they post positions, or basically how are their human resources handled? Lisa, do you want to go first, or should we?
Sure.
Okay.
Both. You can send your resume through our website. All my positions are posted there. I like an electronic resume because I'm loaded into my database and I can share it with the hiring managers much faster. I don't care if it's in Word or PDF, either one is fine. Don't send it in a text and don't incorporate it into your email. I need an attached document. For our more difficult positions, we on occasion will use a specialty hiring firm, an outside firm. But for the most part, we have a large enough staff because it's so important that we are able to staff a good number of our own positions.
For us, this is actually opens up a interesting topic, networking. Over 65% of our hires on average are referrals. So network. Get to know people in your network. How can they help you in your job search? Because those are most likely, those people are gonna, again, going back to the whole cultural piece, they're gonna value the same things you value because maybe you're friends or family, and so they're gonna find companies or work at companies that are similar to maybe where you might fit in. So just something, a little food for thought. We also, our website's open for direct application. We occasionally, same as you, use headhunters for specialty searches, so.
And we don't use headhunters. Typically, we use professional publications, professional organizations, if it's a department level or even maybe secondary level. And then for everything else, we post website, governmentjobs.com, so databases such as that.
We typically don't use headhunters either. We post in trade publications. All of our positions are on our website. And we also use our network of partners as well. As I'm talking with one of our business partners, I typically let them know as well that, I'm hiring for this type of position. And we do have our business partners will often refer to us, hey, this person came across my desk. I thought they'd be a great match for your organization. So we do that as well.
This is an opportunity for me to give a little commercial for the library and particularly our librarians, because everybody knows about Monster.com and CareerBuilder.com. You see the commercials on the television. Librarians can put you directly in touch with job and field specific resources. For example, tell you, maybe check out the company websites in this area or for this industry. Rather than going so general and generic where everybody else is going, librarians can put you directly in touch with the field where you are interested in working. Whether it's financial, government, library, medical, we can really get you in the ballpark of where you want to be and help you be very specific rather than just casting the net so wide. When you cast the net so wide, I think you lose some of that passion. What are you really interested in doing? We can help you find that and help you get there. So next question. Yes, ma'am, in the orange.
You touched a little bit about the questions that employers ask. I think that's the hardest part when you're doing an interview, trying to anticipate what questions you're going to ask so you're prepared to give the correct answer. Are there key questions that you ask that, or most employers ask to automatically see how somebody responds? Or can you give us direction in that area how we can be better prepared?
The question was, are there key questions that are asked during interviews, and could the panelists provide some direction as to what types of interview questions are standard these days? So let's start with Jennifer. Let's go down to the other end.
I think from my perspective, some of the key questions are, I'm interested in knowing what your greatest accomplishments have been so far and why you're so proud of them, as well as not only knowing what you've done really well, But because, I'm in the business, we take a little bit of risk, we try new things. I'm also interested in hearing a little bit about your failures. You tried a project and it didn't work. Well, what did you gain from that, and how did you persevere and overcome? Because we're not all perfect. So that tells me a lot about yourself as well. And I'm also kind of interested in knowing how, you handle things. So I might ask you questions. What do you do on a stressful day? How do you, relieve that? I often give an example of this is a typical day, this and this is happening. Tell me how you would respond to that type of environment or that type of situation. And also knowing, I'll ask questions, what are your hobbies? Because sometimes, your hobbies can tell me a little bit of what it is that you enjoy, and it kind of gives me a little insight as to the type of person you are, and how you might fit in. My questions in an interview tend to be, very broad and, might not seem to have a lot to do with, that PHP developer that I posted for, because I'm trying to get to know you a little bit as well. But I always consistently ask about your accomplishments, your failures, what you like to do in, kind of your off time, and, what have you been doing in your previous position, and how do you like to be, supervised, those type of things is really what I look for.
So first of all, be honest no matter what the question, because if you try to find your way, muddle your way through it, it will show, and it won't result in one of the better interviews like the previous people talked about. So be honest. If you don't know the answer, if it's a specific question or if it's whatever, if you only come up with 2 out of 3, you should have 3 out of 3, no matter if it's strengths, weaknesses. You should have all the basics well rehearsed. You should know those basic questions, examples of your work and how they fit into the organization. But regardless, be honest. The other thing, when I open an interview, I always give people an opportunity for their 3-minute to 5-minute elevator speech. You need to have that elevator speech nailed. And it shouldn't be 10 to 15 minutes, and it can't be 30 seconds. It has to be an elevator speech. I'm Brian Kishnick. I'm the city manager of Troy, one of the greatest cities in the United States of America. And we have a budget of $150 million, 300 employees, and we have gems from the Aquatic Center to the library to the police department and fire. It's one of the top 10 places to raise a family in the United States, as stated by CNN and Family Circle. Okay, you need to have that nailed. All the other basics, I'll let them give you the strengths and weakness and all that, but nail the elevator speech and be honest.
So I think somebody mentioned it before, but this is where the practice comes in, I think, because the reality is you're never going to be able to predict what somebody's going to ask you. So you have to just be used to thinking quickly and having examples. Again, what did you do? How did you do it? And what were the results? Because most questions are going to be around that when it gets into the examples. And then my typical, very similar, I want to understand what motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what gets you excited, what do you like, what don't you like, why have you made the decisions you made to go from one job to the next, what about this opportunity is attractive to you, and why do you think this would be a good next step? So kind of real basic, but I think the reality is you never can predict, so you just have to be ready to think quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. And back up everything that's already been said here. I think that one of the parting impressions that you leave on someone you're interviewing with is, what is your character? And those are the questions that only you can answer. And I think, again, putting something together that sounds good is important. One of my favorite questions to ask, especially for a fresh graduate who maybe needs a break in the interview, is what are you most proud of? And it doesn't have to be anything on your resume. Turn it over and just tell me, what are you most proud of? And it could be I got a 3.9 GPA, and that's great. And it could be that my brother and I built a sailboat on the west side of Michigan and sailed it across over to the east side of Michigan, and that was an answer that I got, and I will remember that forever because it was stellar. So it's building the character, it's understanding how are you going to fit in with the team, because days can be long and they can be intense. And I think that if you're prepared with a question about yourself, and again, honesty is important because it's going to sound honest or dishonest when you say it, when you deliver it. So I think that's one of the most important questions you can be prepared for is what are you most proud of about yourself? And it could be anything. It's okay to say your family. That's fabulous because most companies want you to have that core value. So be prepared for that type of question, I think would be good.
So preparation is extremely important, and I think it's critical, really. But I want to caution you to not be so ready with your responses that you don't listen to the question. It goes back to what Lisa started us out with. If the question is, why do you want to work here? That isn't a question, tell me about the last 30 years of your work experience. So make sure that you're not so ready to go with your canned answers or what you've prepared for that you miss the substance of the question. Next question, sir in the yellow.
Yes, I'd like to know how the panelists would want to handle gaps in the resume with the economic climate in Michigan. My personal experiences, I've been laid off from 6 jobs in 4 years from the automotive industry. I've gone back to school, biomedical engineering. I graduated last year with a biomedical engineering certificate. And I'd like to know, I'm trying to differentiate myself from people, but we talk about honesty and things like that. There's gaps in the resume and the economic climate around here. People have been bounced in and out of jobs.
So the question is, how do the panelists recommend that candidates deal with gaps in employment on their resume? So Brian, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'd be happy to, but I think you nailed it. There's 2 things. Number one, you have to be honest. And in this day and age, honesty in terms of being laid off is a reality. But that's not the issue. Once you're past that and you're honest about what happened, and you can talk about it, what did you do during those times of those downtimes? And then I'd submit that it's really an uptime. This is an opportunity to take control of your life back, if you will, and really be what you want to be. But what steps did you take to do that? My wife taught 3rd and 4th grade for 16 years. She's got a master's degree. Because of my job change, my family, we moved down here, and she's taken this opportunity to go back to be a PhD in kinesiology of all things and become a personal trainer and really get to the heart of her life, what she really finds passion. She loves kids, but what is she doing in this time? What are you doing at this time to retool, to bring yourself to the next level that life has afforded you? And things happen for a reason. Now you need to figure out what that reason was and how did you handle it and what did you do to make it a positive.
Anybody have anything to add to that? All right, we'll move on to our next question. Yes, sir, in the front row.
First of all, I have 2 questions. About a cover letter, some employees do want a cover letter. So is it better to send one? And what would be put in the cover letter? Is it just what you're looking for, or what exactly you want in the position and everything? And my second question is, what is fidgeting actually?
Well, I can give you a demonstration of fidgeting. Shifting, moving back and forth, anything that really is distracting non-verbal behavior, doing a lot of this or running my hands through my hair or, playing with paper, anything really other than just sitting and being attentive to what's going on around you and being relatively still while you're doing it. I'll let the panelists respond if they have that. The question was fidgeting, when I think I gave a good demonstration of that. And then the other question was just basically general information about cover letters, what should be included and how best to write a cover letter. So Jessica, you want to start us off?
I'm Probably not the good one to ask because I don't read them. I just don't think they're that important, to be candid. Resumes are great. I'll look at that, but the cover letter just tends to be a little bit too much for this. Now, this is this organization. There have been other organizations where it's more important. It's a legal role. Maybe it's more important or something like that. But I don't find the value.
Does anybody have anything to add?
I'll just add two things. Number one, the question he asked was, what is fidgeting?
Yes.
What a great question. Honestly, do not be afraid to ask the seemingly obvious question. That is what sets you apart. You're willing to stand up and say, you know what, I don't know what fidgeting is, or maybe I know what I ask so many questions that I know the answer to. I want to know your answer. Right? So you may have known what fidgeting was, or you didn't. But if you did, you want to know what it is to us. So what a great, honest approach. Now, in terms of cover letter, I can't believe she said what she said. I haven't read a cover letter, and I can't tell you how long. But I think you have to include it. Just say that you're applying for this particular position and what you've done in a real summation form, and why you think you should be why you should be have the opportunity to talk again. I'm a bad one too. I don't read them. But I wanted to give you something.
Jennifer or Lisa, anything to add to that?
No, I don't read the cover letters either. I don't find them very important. I mean, I just kind of toss them to the side. I want to get to your resume and know about your skills and your education and so on. I don't think a cover letter is important.
Lisa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, they're probably one of the least important things. I would say that when you are maybe narrowed your candidate selection down to 2 or 3 people, it may be more important to go back and look at it then. But I also do think, again, I keep going back to that follow-up email. I do want to know how well you write. And that cover letter, excuse me, can certainly demonstrate your writing ability, because you will be communicating with even coworkers via email. So much international work is done. You need to be clear and simple in your email communications. And so I think a cover letter can demonstrate that, but it's not critical.
I have a couple things to say to that. The first thing is if you would like to see sample cover letters, the library has a ton of resources on that. We are very happy to help you. The second thing is I think it's really important to follow the instructions in the job posting. If the job posting doesn't ask for a cover letter, you don't have to do it. Here at the City of Troy, for many positions, we require an application, and that's it. So you don't have to write a cover letter. A lot of positions will require a cover letter. So if they require it, you need to do it. Whether it's read or not, you need to do it because they're asking for it. In the cover letter, no more than 1 page. The cover letter should be specific to the job description, little overview, not your life story, no more than 1 page. Beyond that, I will say that really a good thing to do would be to check out the resources of the Troy Library on that subject. So, next question. Yes, ma'am, in the last row. Okay. So the question was, when discussing your failures, if you're asked about your failures in an interview, what's the best way to package that or to answer that question, being honest and yet professional and yet appropriate? Who wants to go first?
I wonder, do you have an example of something we could work with? Like anything you can think of?
Okay, I know a situation where a person was in management in a mental health environment setting, and the person was demoted due to making a med error.
Okay. Okay. What type of area? Medication error. Yeah, so it's pretty, severe, right? I guess what I would, I'll just go. But I was in a position and I made an error, and the repercussions of that was me being demoted. And so what I did from that point on is I worked with my manager to come up with a plan on how I would not make that same mistake again. And so we worked together, and hopefully this is all true, right? But I guess what we're looking for is to see that you recognize you made a mistake and you did something to course correct for the future, and you took the proactive approach in your own personal career development to make sure you didn't make that same mistake again, because everyone makes mistakes. And so that's how I look at it typically.
Anything else to add to that?
So constantly be putting together a performance improvement plan for yourself, because, and I do it all the time, because we make mistakes on more than what you would think, whether it was intentional or not. It's never intentional, it just happens. But you have to put together an improvement plan for yourself. That's the self-evaluation I was talking about, so that when these issues come up, you're not cramming for the interview. This is part of your life process of how am I functioning, what's my improvement plan, and how am I learning from my mistakes and getting better. So, and that's what she's talking about. But you have to do that on a regular basis. You can't just do it for the interview.
Next question. Ma'am in the second to last row on this side.
I just wanted to say it's really important that you're here doing this, and it's really appreciated to show that community involvement. And I just had a question as far as each panelist. What types of community involvement do you have other than this?
So the question for the panelists was, what types of community involvement does each panelist have in addition to their presence here today on the panel? So, Lisa?
That's a great question, and we're actually seeing that question more and more come in from folks that we interview. Are you as well?
Yes.
And I almost want to say it's a younger generation that's asking that question more and more, probably because it's an awareness that's brought at a younger age nowadays. So that's a great question. Our company does charitable sponsorships and donate to those types of causes. Something related to what I do for a living that I am campaigning to do more of is, and I was talking with the panelists earlier about this, is that I think it's important to help the younger generation, specifically middle school students, be more aware of opportunities that are in fields that are growing. And yes, it is partly for our own benefit, because we do need individuals in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields. We call it STEM. So we're working, actually Friday I'm going to U of D Mercy, and I'm taking 8 female software account managers, technical writers, to a group of middle school girls to sit down with them and be real people to them, and talk to them about what opportunities are there for them, make ourselves relatable to them, make us real people. What are our hobbies and why did we get into this? And just be a mini 2-hour role model to them, and be a resource to them, and explain to them how important, I know you had mentioned networking, how important networking is. Start now, because it's a small world and you never know who you're going to bump into.
Yeah, we have a variety of things we're doing. One of the items I mentioned that I think is really neat, because I've been involved personally as well, is called Challenge Detroit. And it's a competition with 30 companies in the region. It's not just about Detroit, it's about a regional revitalization effort where they bring in participants from around the country and really the world now to work for organizations for a year. And 4 days a week they're in the role. And then on the 5th day of the week they're doing different competitions to help revitalize. Like, for example, they would do healthy school menus. So they would have groups of 5, and whoever had the best program would win. And so we're doing that as an organization starting in September, which is really exciting. And that's an initiative that was started through the Collaborative Group, which is actually out of Birmingham. So that's something we're doing this year. And just really, I'm just hyper-focused, obviously, on getting talent into back to Michigan. I myself was in New York City 2 years ago and moved back home, and so I'm very focused on getting more people like myself, or even different generations back to make some big things happen.
So the question is, what opportunities do we provide to be involved in the community, or how are we involved in the community?
How are you involved in the community?
Okay.
Brian is not involved in this community
So-
at all.
I know. So it's kind of a cheat question for me. But as I sit here and I think about it, because it's an excellent question, I've only been here 8 months, and I will tell you, I'm not as involved in the community yet, because things happen, and we're just making the transition. So lots of opportunities for me, Kiwanis, Rotary, that kind of thing, and starting some employee improvement teams who we are going to go out and have a community cause, if you will, not just an internal thing, but a community cause. So lots of opportunities. But one of my all-time favorites, I told you my wife was a teacher, I've always gone into the classroom and taught local government at the kindergarten level, first grade, third, fourth, and then I skipped junior high because it's a very difficult age for me to communicate to, and my son is going into 7th grade. But and then seniors in high school, because I love to spread the message. And my wife and I created this curriculum, right? So it's a 2 to 3 day thing. I can do it either way to present the local government, because most people don't know if the city manager, which I am, is elected by the people or hired. So it's hired by the elected officials, right? But most people don't know that. So I have this mission in life to teach the young people the difference in the different forms of government. So, but let me end by saying this. It is important, if you're going to work for us, that you find a way to get involved in the community. More than just going to your son or daughter's little league game or hockey game or soccer game or whatever. I mean, really finding a connection.
Jennifer.
Genesis is actually very involved in the communities. Our employees have donated, I think last year our employees donated over 5,000 hours of their individual time. Anything from, we do go into local schools, for a week we'll arrange speakers for a class, and we talk about different aspects of financial literacy. We do that at all ages. We do things like environmental cleanups, or we supply, people will volunteer, for the walk for, we do a big walk for warmth in each of our branches and throughout the Metro Detroit area. Hey, this is happening in my community, and our employees from all over will come and participate and add bodies, workers, whatever needs to be done. It goes from every level, whether you need workers or whether, it's just sponsorship dollars. And it's very important to our organization that we are involved in the community involvement, to the fact, we have an entire department dedicated just to community involvement. How can we be involved in the areas that we work and live, as well as, people are recognized for their level of community involvement in our organization. It's one of our core values. So yeah, we try to stay as active as possible.
I'd like to say that Genesis pretty much is out every weekend raising money for someone. I'm not a Somerset Gazette, so I get all those pictures. It's a very active company.
The comment from one of the audience members was that Genesis is very active in the community. And I saw a hand back there. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. So the question is, how can a college student, a recent college graduate, make his or her resume outstanding, attention-getting, so they can get an interview? And Lisa had talked about that, so maybe Lisa, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I would say from simply writing it clearly, and it should probably be 1 page. I recognize that you don't have a lot of content to put on it. I would hope that that individual would have already had some internship experience. even if it's not directly related to the degree or the job that they are applying for, it shows that you know how to work in a collaborative effort and in a group. So it may even be a project that you worked on in school that you are writing to look like a job description that you have performed. So it shows that you know that there are different roles within the team, and you can talk to the role that you had held, whether it was I was the one who was responsible for coordinating the group meetings, I took care of all scheduling and timing for that, or maybe I had a financial role in terms of I was the treasurer for that particular team that I was on. So I think that kids don't often realize that things that they do really are preparing them for the real world, and you can write it as such and still be honest, that that's really what was taking place. You are working collaboratively in a group setting, even if it's with fellow students. So you need to put content down. Certainly, even working, again, in a charitable role and doing volunteer work is something that you can put down. It shows us, again, what your character is. We look for, technically qualified employees, and then those employees that, are going to add other types of value, be a good leader, be a good role model, and that type of thing.
Does anyone have anything to add to that? Okay. Sir, in the front row, you've had your hand up for a little while.
Relates to the hiring potential of the aging candidate. It's an issue that is obviously a growing issue. And the panel provides some insights into how you view an aging candidate in terms of longevity on the job. Someone walks in at 55, 52, late 40s, the longevity of employment for you, the employer.
So the question was, how does the panel view candidates who are more advanced in their career, who are maybe in their late 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, who and in terms of their longevity or their potential longevity in the position that has been advertised? Would anybody like to start us off?
So I did this with my father probably 15 years ago, and he's about 55 at the time, and he had owned a business for a long time, the family business, and wanted to get out of that and go to the Chamber of Commerce world. And I remember what we talked about is how do you really position yourself to show all the leadership qualities that you've had as an owner of a company or whatever you've done? How did you reposition your resume, number one? Because what we found was, and what I find in the city of Troy for sure, is there is a growing desire to hire non-traditional, early out of college candidates because of the experience, because of the fit, because of the life experience that you bring to the table. So we've done it a lot in the city of Troy, I know, and that may be a little different for software engineers. I don't know that world, but I know we're hiring, as I said, the person, not the skills, because the skills, as long as you have the foundation, we can work with you. And that doesn't mean there's a lot of training. That means we work with you in the environment of city government and good governance. So we've done it a lot, and I don't know that I haven't heard that there's a conscious awareness to do just that, but I think there's an experience level at the local governance level that is certainly showing through. So I think you have to retool yourself and position yourself so that you are a viable candidate and bring a host of. You're not going to get racket. You're not going to get fidgety. You're not going to get out of your comfort level. You're very comfortable in the role that you're doing and the environment that you're put in. So I think as long as you can show that and you have the skills, I think you'll be head and shoulders above.
I'd like to hear comments from the corporations.
Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I agree, and it's in how you present yourself. And so long as you have, I think if you can demonstrate the skills for what I'm looking for, because part of, I'm looking for somebody to fill, to help with the team, and I want a diverse team, so whether it's somebody, of all age groups, of all different backgrounds, because that really enhances the collaboration for the ideas, because there's many times where we're sitting around a room and brainstorming ideas, and so it's important to have, for me, to have a well-rounded group. So, I can't say that I'm consciously looking for, a specific age or whatever, but it's really what I think you're going to bring to the table. So, I mean, so long as I think if you're making yourself relevant you've paid attention to the job description that I've given you, and you've demonstrated how you're relevant to that, that to me, I think will help set you apart. Because like I said, it is all about a well-rounded collaborative team, and I do need people from all sorts of different backgrounds, different ages. So really what I'm looking for is, do you have the skills that I need, and how will you fit into my team?
Speaking for the service industry, and the library is a service, I can tell you that if you've worked in service before, customer service, and you like working with people and you're good at it, and you have 30 years or 20 years or 5 years or 10 years of experience where maybe you've won, Employee of the Month for your service, or, maybe you haven't, but that joy of working with people and helping people really comes through in your interview. I don't care how old you are. And I would rather have someone like that who is 72 versus a 22-year-old who maybe their social skills haven't quite developed yet, and who maybe really truly don't like people. So I think for me, it's important for you to look at what you want to do and find the fit as opposed to an age. Yes, sir. I think we'll take your quick question, then we have time for one more, and then we have to end. So yes, sir. So the question is, do you put dates on your resume that identify your age?
Like graduation dates and yeah. I more transparency the better from my perspective. I'm not looking at age or dates. I'm looking at what people have done and what they bring to the table. And if they don't put dates, sometimes I'm like, why wouldn't they want me to know, right?
Anything to add to that? Okay, we have.
The answer was yes or no, dates or no dates.
Yes, please.
The more transparency, the better.
The answer was transparency. The answer was whatever you're doing, be transparent. Now, to the point over here, when you've been laid off 6 times, be transparent, but also have the explanation and how it's helped you. Okay? With age, it's not the issue, but transparency on your dates of employment, dates of graduation, that's okay. It might be a connection. You might connect to a time period or something. You never know. Transparency was the answer.
Yes. Last question. Who's had their hand up for a while? Yes, ma'am, in the back. The question was, in terms of resume style, which is better, to have a functional resume or a chronological resume? Do the panelists have a preference? Panelists, do you have a preference? Lisa?
I want to see a chronological resume. I want to see how you've grown and how you've evolved and what you've moved into and what you've moved away from within each company in the years that you worked there. The functional resumes, I'm going to ask. I'm flustered by those because I have to guess. Then, well, what did she do here? What did she do there? I'm guessing. You just tell me. So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
I was going to say the combined may kind of help, because I think you got kind of both elements there. And how many pages do you put on a resume? 1 or 2?
The question was, how many pages on a resume? 1, 2, 6?
You can get it into one. I like one.
1 page. If you have something really relevant and goes over to 2, fine. Functional resume, don't read them. Chronological, make it easy. You just heard him say, make it easy. Make yourself come alive on paper in as short a format as you can use. That doesn't mean it's 1 or 2. You need to determine that for yourself. But brevity is your friend. Getting it out in a way that makes it easy for us to read and connect with you.
All right. Well,
Go back as far as jobs now, how far do you go back? And the other thing is, if you've worked in jobs and your
superior officer, either the job is out of, the company's out of business, or your superiors have retired, or they're no longer with the company.
Okay.
Or recommendation, for referrals, like when you want to contact them, how do you go about doing it?
So the question was, and we're going to end with that question. So we'll wrap it up with that. In terms of referrals, how do you handle it if the company is no longer in business or there's no way to contact your former employer? And I think it was, how far back do you go on your resume? So thoughts on that?
I have a theory on reference checks and referrals. So I think A players, strong performers, keep relationships forever. So if they have an old manager that may not be employed with the company, they can get a hold of them because they still talk to them and use them in their career. So that's kind of one thing I always think about. And then how far back, and you may differentiate here, but I like the whole story because I'm going to ask it anyways. So I just want it on the paper so we can walk through it. So that's my opinion.
Anything to add to that? Anybody? Jennifer, did you?
I like the whole picture as well. You know, and then as far as, you know, the referrals, I agree. I think that, you know, a lot of people do maintain those contacts or, you know, have a letter of reference or a letter of recommendation, you know, before they've left. You know, so it's hard to do sometimes, but yeah.
No, it is.
Okay. Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I want to say thank you so much to our panelists for coming and sharing their expertise and their experience and all their wonderful information with us. I also want to let you know, make sure that you know, please don't leave here without knowing that the Troy Library is available to you. We have a team of librarians who are more than happy. We're dying to help you with your cover letter questions, your resume questions, your job search questions. Philip is in the back, and he's happy to talk to you about our job seekers class, which we are running again in September, and we plan to run, you know, as long as the Friends will continue to fund us, and they've expressed interest for funding us in perpetuity. So we are here for all of your job needs. Please don't hesitate to use the library for that, and let's give a round of applause to our panelists for taking their time.